This is PTV World. I am Syed Shabahat Ali and you are watching Fault Lines. On 6th May 2021, the Indian police have arrested two men for illegally possessing the highly radioactive natural uranium, which could have potentially be used by the terrorist to make a nuclear explosive. The police seized over 7 kilograms of natural uranium from the two men arrested in the western Maharashtra. According to Anti-Terrorism Squad in Maharashtra, the confiscated material is worth 2.9 million US dollar. An investigation into the case is underway. The revelations have raised concern about India emerged as a potential hotspot in illegal trade of nuclear technology and material. To join me in my program, my first guest is Dr. Mansoor, who has remained a research fellow at Harvard University, and he's a senior research fellow at Center of Strategic Studies. Dr. Mansoor, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Doctor, tell us about protocols and safety standards for the nuclear safety and security requirements that are incumbent upon any country.
The first standard protocol is the physical security of materials, starting from the raw materials, which is the natural uranium, and moving up the ladder of the nuclear fuel cycle. That includes various processes involved in the production of nuclear fuel for power reactors and fissile materials for nuclear weapons. So there are different processes involved in the nuclear fuel cycle, but the standard procedures required for physical protection and the safety of nuclear materials and facilities are generally considered to be required to be of the highest standard. In India's case, unfortunately, this incident is not the first time that it happened. It shows a couple of things. Number one, that their material control and monitoring system is extremely weak and is vulnerable to theft. Secondly, India does not have an independent nuclear regulatory board or nuclear regulatory authority that is supposed to oversee the safety of the nuclear facilities. And the Central Industrial Protection Force that is designated to protect nuclear materials and facilities is reportedly understaffed, and its budget is less than $1 billion. It's about $750 million. Then there are personnel reliability programs, there are human reliability issues, and this is not the first instance that such an incident took place. This has been reported since 1994. There have been various incidents of this kind that have been going on a regular basis in India. What India should have done is to have reported this to the IAEA, but the problem essentially is that India's program presents a unique conundrum for safety standards and for non-proliferation standards around the world, because it has a very large program. In fact, it is the largest growing nuclear program outside the NPT states, and much of it is disguised as a civilian nuclear program, but it is integrally linked to its strategic or its weapons program.
How significant, I'm sorry to cut you here, how significant is that event that has taken place in India, and what can be its repercussions?
I think this particular incident and this event needs to be seen in the context of the overall domestic security environment in India, particularly the political environment, the kind of regime that is in charge. The fact that people were able to get hold of 7 kilograms of natural uranium means that the security protocols were not being followed and implemented. And that points to a black market link, because they must have gotten hold of this material from a uranium mine. And India is also known to have been a beneficiary of the global nuclear black market for the development of its nuclear program for over 30 years now. So I think it puts a question mark on India's credentials to be inducted in the nuclear suppliers group. India and India's friends abroad have been very vocal and have been consistently arguing that India has impeccable, so-called impeccable non-proliferation credentials. So this again exposes the inherent weaknesses of India's safety and security culture. And incidentally, very interestingly, there have been plenty of reports by experts in the United States and elsewhere pointing to the weak security and safety and security of India's nuclear materials and facilities, especially in terms of the transparency. Pakistan, on the other hand, scored quite well. For example, the NTI index that was released last year, Pakistan was rated as the most improved country in terms of safety and security, and India's ranking consistently fell below that of Pakistan. So I think you have to look at this one incident in the context of the political regime, the kind of extremist right-wing nationalist government that is in there. And secondly, India's growing program. I mean, I've been writing about this for a very long time, that India's growing stockpile of nuclear materials, especially weapon-usable nuclear materials, poses a safety and security risk. There is a proliferation risk, of course, because it increases India's ability to produce more nuclear warheads. But the fact that India is expanding its nuclear program right from the uranium exploration up till the back end of the fuel cycle, which is reprocessing, this is the largest expanding nuclear program anywhere in the world. But nobody is taking notice of it because of vested...
Yeah. Doctor, but why is India failing so badly? As you said that this is not the first time. There is a history of events happening every time. Why India has not been able, it's one of the countries with highest defense expenditures, why they have not been able to upgrade the security protocols for their nuclear program?
I think there's a combination of factors, one of which is their self-image of being a great power. They look upon themselves as a rising power, and the Americans have been feeding their ego, designating them as a net security provider, and that has essentially inculcated a false sense of superiority and complacency. This is a question of complacency and incompetence, and also because equally important is the fact that much of India's program is outside the scope of the International Atomic Energy Agency safeguards, and that is why there is no transparency. So this is primarily a deliberate policy of the Indian government for a number of years, that they will not open up to the rest of the international community, especially the IAEA, and will not follow the kind of protocols that the IAEA requires. Unless they are part of unless their civilian energy program is part of the IAEA safeguard system, those protocols cannot really be implemented on the ground.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mansoor, for being on my show. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break here and we'll join back with the second segment of the program. Stay with us. Welcome back. I have two prestigious guests with me in my studio. My first guest is Dr. Maria Sultan. She is DG of South Asian Strategic Stability Institute based in Islamabad. Dr. Shaba, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
And I have with me our frequent guest, Mr. Muhammad Ali, who is director of a famous think tank in Islamabad called CAS. Dr. Shaba, welcome to the program again, and tell me how significant is the event that has recently taken place in India, and we have spoken about it in our introduction.
It's extremely significant considering the fact that India is not only being considered as a major partner for the United States in terms of collaboration with the nuclear energy, but also has been participating with lots of joint ventures ranging from countries from France to Australia, from Australia to Russia. All those people who are considered to be the ones who are leading the global non-proliferation regime. Now, what is the interesting part is that it is not the first incident of its kind. There have been more than 300 plus cases in which nuclear material has gone missing in India. So it has been a long series where it is actually a reflection of the fact that actually things haven't come up to scale. Yes, the talk on India has, but has the nuclear standards in India improved? Unfortunately not. And what's alarming is that while these news are coming out from India that the anti-terrorist security teams have gone and apprehended this sting operation or a reality, the fact of the matter is that none of the international partners, such as which India is signatory to, such as the Convention Against, the Global Initiative Against Nuclear Terrorism, or the other international bodies which look at these issues, have actually responded on that. And this means that perhaps they're looking the other way. This means that actually not everything is not in order. And then what is also interesting is that in this news, the Bhabha Atomic Research Center, which itself has been earlier been at the heart of nuclear smuggling, had been at the heart of different nuclear proliferation events, is now signifying where do they think this material has come. And they are suggesting that this material has actually come from somewhere else. So the fact remains that, one, how have you done this nuclear forensics without any international body? Why the international partners are totally quiet about it? What about the international standards? And for a country which is actually at this moment led by a totally, I would say, unremarkably, not at all lucid leadership, which continues to use legal apparatus of the state to disenfranchise people in different parts of India, is now heading a nuclear arsenal. So it's not only that they are unsafe, but we are finding this nuclear material in different parts. In this case, they're saying that it has come from somewhere in the north. They're saying that some of the smuggling events might have led to it, and Bhabha Atomic Research Center has gone ahead and talked about it, and they're saying that it could have radioactive potential. The fact still remains that what about the unaccounted material? How come in the bordering areas of India this material has reached? One. Number two, what's significant is that they are also highlighting that both of the people who were the smugglers were Muslims. So this is also another part which has been highlighted. And this is not a recent news. These people were apprehended on 14th of February. And this is what? We are in May almost. And so it means 5 months. And after 5 months, they have done this audit. No international body has come forward once the original event happened. Nobody's commented on it. No details on the material has been highlighted other than the fact that they think that the buyer was somebody from the Gulf country.
Muhammad Ali, 7 kilograms of the nuclear material going out unnoticed. How significant is that?
Shahbaz Sahab, I think it's very interesting for a number of reasons. Because Dr. Maria and myself have been looking at these issues for almost 2 decades. And it is very interesting because a lot of international think tanks have made their careers out of trying to keep a spotlight on Pakistan and raising questions about Pakistan's safety and security. But like Dr. Saab also pointed out, this is not the first time that this has happened. In 2016 as well, there was a similar incident in Maharashtra. And this indicates that these are not just occasional occurrences, but there is a black market, international black market, which is integrated and linked to the Indian nuclear establishment. And very interestingly, according to Indian sources, it is reported that these people who were reportedly working with some scrap company from where they were nabbed, they were asked as part of the Indian security establishment's investigations that how did you know what is it and where did you verify and where were you looking for the customers. They said there was a private lab from where we got this tested. So this indicates there is a private sector involvement which tests and helps provide technical assistance to this network, which is operating perhaps with the negligence or perhaps with some sort of ignorance or complicity of the Indian establishment. So that is very important for three reasons. Number one, India in the last 13 years has signed more than a dozen agreements involving international nuclear cooperation, which involves technology, materials, different dimensions and aspects of nuclear cooperation from Canada, Australia, Kazakhstan, US, and so many other countries. So it is very important that these countries should review the nature and the extent of cooperation with a country which has such a irresponsible nuclear behavior, whose nuclear security regime is so flawed and unreliable. They should ask for tougher conditions and closer oversight. And also the role of International Atomic Energy Agency is very important, that they should consider investigating it independently to ensure not only exposing the reality, but to also ensure that no other country is blamed irresponsibly without any evidence. And lastly, very interesting technical point, because according to reports, the material was natural uranium. I don't know that. I have not been able to verify it, and I will not accept any perspective unless there is an independent verification, because the amount which was quoted is not proportionate to the quantity. 7.1 kg natural uranium does not cost 7 crore rupees in open market. So there is a catch here.
So
either the amount is not right or it is not natural uranium. And secondly, natural uranium could have come from, depends upon its form, whether it has come from mines or, very interestingly, the Indian unsafeguarded nuclear reactors, Shabahat Saab, the pressurized heavy water reactors, they use natural uranium for military reactors. That is very important. People need to know that. The power reactors are fueled by low enriched uranium, which is mostly provided by international community as part of the agreement. So what I'm saying is
a bit convenient for the sake of the convenience
yes,
of my audience.
Yes.
What does the difference
basically
mean,
to simplify this complex technology, the type of Indian reactors are essentially two types: those which are for military purposes and those which are for power purposes. The power reactors are under IAEA oversight, and they mostly run on low enriched uranium, which is mostly provided by international community, whether Kazakhstan, Canada, Australia, or other countries. Whereas domestic source natural uranium is mostly diverted towards military reactors. And pressurized heavy water reactor, which is the type of reactor which is used for producing weapon grade uranium, weapon grade plutonium, is basically PHWR, which uses natural uranium. So what I'm hinting at, there is a possibility that the military fuel cycle has also gaps, which deserves international security concerns. The Indian allies, including the US, needs to ask the Indians that where is this pilferage taking place? Is this the nexus of black market, or also whether there are gaps in which this could be used against international peace and security.
Dr. Saab, I was reading a news item this morning, and somewhere in Indian media they have started already pointing out fingers at Pakistan. Your comment on that?
I think it's very unfortunate that we are dealing with such a lopsided arrangement of nuclear materials within India. My colleague has said very aptly, the threats which are coming from the military component, that it might also have pilferage issues. I think there are three questions which need to be answered. First is that the Central Industrial Security Force, which is in charge of India's nuclear facilities, why was this case not taken up by them, which is actually under the Home Ministry of India? What's interesting is that they have brought this case forward under the ATS. And what is also interesting is that this ATS, as you can understand, in FATF and other issues, is at this moment trying very hard. FATF is trying very hard to bring in proliferation also as a major issue of concern. But what we had seen was that in the international database for threat of proliferation, which is maintained at the International Atomic Energy Agency, there has been a significant decrease from 1993 till almost 2004. And after that, it was considered that the global incidences of nuclear terrorism and global incidences of nuclear threat, nuclear illicit trade had actually come down. But this indication basically is giving us a feeling that perhaps it is something in which they're trying to build it up as a sting operation and try to hide their own lopsided standards. The fact that nuclear material goes missing in India is not new. I had earlier talked about it. At one time, they had almost 3.7 kgs, and another time almost 9.5 kgs, which is equal to making a nuclear warhead, went missing. That was enriched uranium. So it was not even small material which had gone missing, it was enriched uranium. And this signifies, and it supplements what Ali has said, that it is their weapons program which is at this moment under the threat of illicit proliferation.
And it is also not under international oversight as well.
Yeah, and then the fact that and second issue is that the nuclear fuel cycle is also not separated. That means that the military facilities and the civilian facilities are using the material from the same source. And third, if they are going to say this thing, that right now Pakistan, you know, what the news which you're referring to, in which they said that some Pakistani security establishment is trying to fund some people in Kashmir, you know, to start an act of nuclear terrorism, is totally, you know, I think unwarranted. The world understands what India did on 5th of August 2019, that is putting Pakistan at a back run in terms of the fact that an internationally recognized dispute was, you know, through legislative terrorism taken by India. The people were disempowered. And now that they cannot handle that issue, they are trying to bring international concern from a different component, trying to build all of these things. It doesn't work this way. If this is going to be linked on Pakistan, we will demand International Atomic Energy Agency's not only a forensic report on it, we would also demand, where India is signatory to the CCPNM, it is signatory to the International Conventions Against Nuclear Terrorism, radioactive sources, and so on and so forth, and that these conventions, these treaties, and other international mechanisms must make India accountable. This is not a joke. If you are going to put almost 1.2 billion people of this region under a threat of nuclear terrorism, under the threat of, you know, trying to cover your own, you know, lack of standards, you want to push all of this blame, you want to address what else can you take away from the Kashmiris? You know, what else can you do, what you haven't done up till now, that you would need to create such kind of diversion on an issue which will demand international oversight, which will not be taken by any international expert. The fact of the matter is that India is right now thinking about further developing munitions, like further developing smaller nuclear warheads, and if this is the standard of their military warheads, if this is the standard of their military held material, then God help us. This basically would mean that you would be having nuclear terrorism incidences in India, and the blame would be shifted to Pakistan. The fact remains that there needs to be serious accountability in India. Up till now, India is the only country which has got nuclear warheads which does not have an independent regulatory authority. They have an Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, a country with more expected to have 60,000 megawatts of nuclear energy to be built, does not have an independent regulatory board. They have gone into multi-billion dollars contracts with different countries for not only creating these nuclear power plants for India, but also providing them with nuclear materials. If they can't have an independent regulatory board, you're even expecting, the Americans are even expecting to help them get an NSG membership. You know, it seems as if everything has been, you know, set aside for them. Fine, you do what you want to do. But if there are going to be global standards, if there are going to be 196 countries which have signed up for non-proliferation, they demand, including Pakistan, that India takes this act very responsibly. This is not something in which their home ministry, for the lack of efficiency which their Central Industrial Security Force has carried out, shifts blame over here and puts this region as well as the world at large at such a huge high risk.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sahib. Ali, how do you see this in comparison to the safety standards that we have here in Pakistan? And for the sake of convenience of my audience, can you make it a bit more comprehensive, Pakistan safety standards versus what we observe in India?
In very brief and simple terms, I think two things are starkly contrasting. First, the size of Pakistan's nuclear program versus the size of Indian nuclear program. And secondly, the degree of international interest in Pakistan's nuclear program and the degree of interest that the US and the international community has towards Indian nuclear program. The history, the age and the size of Indian nuclear program is much more, you know, bigger than that of Pakistan. Pakistan is a developing country with limited resources, and even the strategic side only adequately takes to a credible minimum deterrence. We do not have any extra regional ambitions, number one. Secondly, we are trying to use the peaceful nuclear program to meet our food, agriculture, energy, health, and other needs. In case of India, they have almost 24 reactors, 22 reactors. They are getting 7 more reactors, and they leverage themselves as a large growing international market for international nuclear suppliers, and is also trying to, as Madam also pointed out, trying to become a member of the nuclear suppliers group. So, but these incidents of pilferage, theft, smuggling, accidents is exceptional. I mean, I don't think any other developing country has such a poor safety and security record as the Indians do. But it is also very remarkable that the International Atomic Energy Agency, United Nations Security Council, international think tanks, the Conference on Disarmament, all the international relevant institutions that look at different aspects of strategic issues and expect some sort of responsible and transparent international behavior, are silent about the Indian irresponsible nuclear behavior, which is not just a threat to international and regional peace and security, but also it is a threat to the Indian nation itself. The Indian nation deserves an explanation from their leadership, from their military, and from their nuclear establishment, that why such an irresponsible behavior has gone on without any heads being rolled, without any accountability, without anybody being taken to task. And secondly, let me reinforce my original point, that the entire world seems to be obsessed with discussing Pakistan's nuclear program. Why no discussion on the size of Indian nuclear arsenal, the pace at which it is growing, the exceptional access of nuclear technology to India, and lastly, the desperate encouragement to try to get India into the nuclear suppliers group. This is divorced from the ground reality that Indian nuclear behavior is irresponsible. It is also internationally unaccountable. This is adding fuel to the fire by not holding India accountable, nobody getting punished, and focusing disproportionately on Pakistan's very small and responsible and consistent behavior, and a very very good, trustworthy relationship with International Atomic Energy Agency.
You wanted to supplement
I just wanted to say 2 very quick points. I think it's a cause of great international concern, and definitely a regional concern, that India's systems are failing. You know, that there is this report which we are talking about has come from Anti-Terrorist Security Force unit. This investigation has been done by an ATS. It has not been done by Central Industrial Security Force. It is not done by Homeland, or it's not done by the Indian Home Ministry.
Or
it is not
Custom,
even done by an independent investigation within India. So forget about, it's just like your police going and doing that. And one last point in that is that they are signatory to 13 international conventions against suppression of nuclear terrorism, as well as illicit trafficking, plus against terrorism per se. So if you are signatory to 13 conventions and treaties, why is it that your systems are in such disarray that 5 months on, you don't know where it's come from? You can't explain where that material has come from. You're saying at one time it's depleted uranium, and another, in the same breath, you're saying it's natural uranium. Then you're coming up with 7.1 kgs. So in my understanding, in our technical understanding, it's most probably plutonium coming from one of their warheads missing, because 7.1 is a material amount which would be required for maybe perhaps a plutonium device, not basically for a uranium device. For a uranium device, you would require much greater amounts of material for that, and then definitely not a low category. And the amount has varied from 7 crores to 22 crores. So Indian 22 crores you're willing to give for 7.1 kgs. So this basically means that a market assessment has been done, and that market assessment must have been done in terms of the rating and the enrichment of the material. It won't be done on natural uranium.
Which international institutions should be concerned about what's the governing mechanism of this nuclear safety standards in the world, and which organizations have yet not responded? to
First
to this?
organization which must respond is the International Atomic Energy Agency, because they have a global international terrorism database which looks at threat against nuclear, illicit trafficking of nuclear materials. India is party to the IAEA, they must respond to it. Second is, of course, the United Nations Security Council. The UN Security Council must ask India in terms of what the standards are, because this is going to be a threat to global peace. It's a threat to international security. And then comes all these international conventions which I refer to, 13 plus international conventions. These 13 plus international conventions, why haven't they spoken on that? Then comes the different treaties which India is party to. So they should also have equal concern. And last but not least, the biggest concern should come from all those international trading parties which are right now trading with India in the nuclear field. That if these are the standards, this basically means you will be getting highly enriched uranium, you will be putting this region at risk, you will be putting the people at risk, and no accountability, no transparency. On what account? It's very simple. When we are talking about nuclear materials must come with nuclear responsibility. Yes, you have looked the other way because India is your partner, but is it enough that today you want to spread nuclear terrorism worldwide? You want to bring in illicit trafficking of nuclear materials and then come up with these cocked up stories of saying that it has come from outside, it has come from the the bordering areas. The fact remains, for 5 months, what was the investigation? The fact remains, why Bhabha Atomic Research Center's research has not been made public if it is actually based on this. What kind of a nuclear facility is this? What kind of nuclear forensics is this? That they can't differentiate it is natural uranium, they can't differentiate it is depleted uranium, they can't differentiate whether it is enriched uranium, and most importantly, what is the signature? Have you shared this signature with somebody? In some of the news which I read, they said it is written made in USSR. Excuse me, it is made in USSR, lands up in a scrap area in India. Bhabha Atomic Research Agency suddenly wakes up and goes and finds this from the scrap dealers. They find out that these people are there, and the Indian anti-terrorist units are so effective. They do this. What about the nuclear security mechanisms? Where has all of those people gone? And this comes to the initial question which you had asked in terms of their nuclear deterrence, that if they are thinking of miniaturizing their nuclear warheads, if they are thinking of going on a forward deployment structure and force posture, how and what level of security will they give to the world when they are not deployed, when they are not using this against countries like Pakistan, that you will actually be saving Indian military officers, you will be saving Indian scientists, Indian people, because you can't even take control of your own materials. If you can't take control of materials, they land up in their border areas. You come up with these strange ideas, and interestingly, everybody happens to be Muslim when the nuclear facilities of India are led by non-Muslims who don't even pass, because unfortunately the Muslims after Modi's government do not even pass the security standards. They are not even given security clearances. So they land up in India's nuclear program, they pick up this material, they land up in a scrap area, the ATS goes, picks it up, and after 5 months all of this is revealed with no international oversight, no investigation. I think a lot needs to be asked. The UN Security Council needs to ask India very squarely on this. All these 13 conventions which India is signatory to, they need to make India accountable for it. Why India has not responded on this, and where are these treaties? If such a case would have happened for Pakistan, we would have seen what has happened to Iran. We would have seen that treaty mechanism, those people taking the case to the UN Security Council and then putting sanctions on India.
Ali, is there a discrimination between the nations now? Like, if the same...
Absolutely. I think...
can there be a comparison between what Iran has and what India has done, and what
I think
both have faced?
It's a very unfair world.
Very unfair.
And the Indian nuclear program and its history is perhaps the world's best kept secret. Yes, proliferation.
The best proliferator in the world happens to be India.
If you look at the last 74 years, the international responsibility and expectations from the Indian nuclear program and its behavior has been remarkably irresponsible.
True.
If you look at their history, they were, let me just quickly, for the benefit of your viewers, take you back to history. The Indian foreign policy was very smart. They presented themselves during the Cold War as the representative and the leader of the developing world as part of the non-aligned movement. But at the same time, they were getting nuclear technology from both Eastern and Western sources. They were getting it from Canada. They were getting their scientists and engineers trained in the US. They were getting the reactors from Russia. So they were fooling everybody, and very well. They diverted nuclear material in order to build their first nuclear bomb. And they again tried to fool the world by calling it a peaceful nuclear explosion, not actually claiming that it's a nuclear weapon test. And again, that happens in case of 1998 tests, and they start threatening Pakistan. And then they try to blame Pakistan, and by one individual's act, that as if the whole state was involved. But in reality, several Indians were involved. So their whole narrative was aimed at isolating Pakistan and discouraging international nuclear cooperation with Pakistan, despite our exemplary, consistent, and very professional behavior towards nuclear material, nuclear technology, and international cooperation. Pakistan has thrice been elected on the board of governors of IAEA. And it's not something which is a favor. It is an international recognition of the impeccable and very exemplary professional standards of Pakistan's nuclear establishment. Thirdly, when you look at Pakistan's nuclear program, it has a peaceful side which only aims at promoting non-traditional security needs of Pakistan, whether it's health, education, energy, food security, or whatever. In terms of the strategic side, it is a credible minimum deterrence approach which requires only to ensure that nobody tries to harm our national security interests. It's very simple. In case of India, its nuclear program it symbolizes their global ambitions. And when you see it in the context of the Hindutva ideology, you are trying to help. The international community, my dear, is trying to help India become the only Hindu superpower in the world, armed with a huge nuclear arsenal. They have more than a dozen delivery systems that they are developing. So it means two things. Either their defense establishment is fooling their political leadership and nation, or they are more ambitious than many other powers. Their defense budget is greater than France and Britain now. So these are the things that need to be seen in the context. These three factors: the Indian extremist Hindutva ideology, the size and pace of at which their nuclear and strategic establishment is growing. Third, their irresponsible behavior. And fourth, their poor safety and security record. If you add it up, I think the international community and international institutions like IAEA, in the greater interest of international peace and security, must timely and adequately intervene and demand answers before Indian military, Indian scientific community, and Indian leadership does not cause any more harm to their own nation and also to the region and the world.
Dr. Abha, we are running out of time. How do you think Pakistan should be responding to it? This is a big event. Pakistan cannot let it go unnoticed.
I think we need to take this issue very strongly and very squarely. First of all, we need to highlight globally what India's nuclear safety record has been. And from nuclear fires to their reactor domes coming down, to releasing radioactive material in the Indian Ocean, to actually nuclear material gone missing in India is common stay, number one. So this needs that there needs to be some accountability on that. And now with the global international treaties, which range from radioactive materials to acts against suppression of nuclear terrorism, to illicit trafficking of nuclear materials, all of these international instruments must raise their voice. It's not a question of this or that, it's a question of what international standards are you actually going for. And third, we must ask the International Atomic Energy Agency, and we must raise this question in the UN Security Council as well as the Conference of Disarmament, that if this is what we have to deal with, then where does the security actually stop? And then where does this actually becomes accountable? The only point which I would like to mention here is that this is not just linked to material going from India's civilian facilities. Tomorrow India is thinking, and it is part of India's military doctrine as of yet, that they will be thinking of miniaturizing their nuclear warheads. So if they're miniaturizing their nuclear warheads, and depleted uranium as well as other nuclear materials will be available in small quantities in different parts of India's military structure, what will be the level of threat which we will be dealing with? So this needs to be a very considered, careful, and I would say we must respond to it very strongly. And I think there should be a DCC meeting, a Defence Consultative meeting on this issue. We must raise this issue to all levels, or Parliament must deliberate on it and must state it. Because tomorrow, if you're not accountable for your systems, the worst part in this entire story is that you have not listened from any strong independent authority in India to speak freely on it. The last thing is that once they have not spoken on it, then it basically means that the buck is open.
Ali, last 30 seconds to conclude this entire discussion.
I think the 4 things that the international community immediately must consider. The agreements, the nuclear deals that they have with India must be reviewed. All the nuclear suppliers should review the commitments and the transparency and safety security from India. Number 2, IAEA should demand an independent inquiry before India tries to implicate anybody else. Number 3, I think all those countries who as a matter of policy are trying to build up India should also review their policy, whether the Indian identity, value system and strategic behavior is consistent with the responsibility which is expected of a nuclear power.
Thank you very much, Ali. Thank you very much, Dr. Saiba, for being
Thank you
on
so
my
much.
show. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the fact that the international community is silent on this big event, there are serious concerns in Pakistan regarding accountability and transparency of Indian nuclear program. We'll join you next week with another program. And until then, Allah Hafiz.